Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again. Here with another reaction to Mr. Kyle Morgan, former Delta Force operator, back on the Sean Ryan Show. So let's jump back in.
It's not a selfish act. It's an act that I've talked through and thought through, and
it's you don't want to wind up on national television.
No, at that point, like how many times have you seen it? Like
for your family to see.
Just the screams they're just implanted in your head from seeing those videos and hearing them, and like whether they're drugging you or not, like we're not gonna get there, homie. Like I'm not doing it. Like, and you got to be okay with the fact that that's one of the courses of action that you will have to happen, could potentially have to happen.
Yeah.
And I can look at you in the eye and tell you that, oh, I would have done it over just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw what the benefit was, the trust that we built, and then the people, like the locals, started just flocking in back home. They would just thank us. Like people that they were like, no, like you guys, the Taliban are just going to come in and once you guys leave and make us all pay. And just through like this archaic, like the Sharia law and all these things of like, just the stuck in the stone, like stuck in the past of they haven't evolved from a societal perspective. And
how long were you,
and just care and like human decency.
How long were you and your team in the village before that the locals decided they trusted it enough to come back?
Probably it was interval, or you'd see like one or two, the word would spread, and then they'd be like, okay, they come try us out, they come feel us out. We'd hold these big shuras in the town now, and the town was Hasar, and then we'd stand up in front of everybody, and tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. We're opening. We're gonna build a bridge right here. And
sorry to cut him off. A little bit challenging, or there have been bits that have been challenging for me to hear. Still interesting though, but challenging just in regards to, I love the questions that Sean has asked. And then here's another example. I don't know what, I get that he's out of the military by the time he's done this interview, but he's only fairly fresh out. And he's been asked the question, how long were you guys in that village before the locals started feeling comfortable enough to come back into it? And we just, haven't got a time frame, or I'm sort of hanging on, waiting for, was it a few months? Was it a few weeks? Was it days? I'd be surprised if it was days or weeks, before they started coming back, but it could be. But I'm just hoping that we get an answer to that. Maybe Sean will do a follow-up and we'll get an idea. But it's sort of, some of the other ones where I spoke about where he's given his answers, it starts to drift off onto something relevant, interesting, applicable to the situation, but not so specific in response to the question, if that makes sense. So anyway, I may have cut him off too soon, so I may be eating my own words shortly, which is fine. I'm fine with that.
Oh, we opened up lines of commerce that hadn't happened in the history of like their society, and connected outside of just a little moto. Like now you can drive dump trucks down this road. And I say we were the effort, but that took a ton of resources. It's moving like mountains, like moving a mountain. And, but that's the impact, and putting our money where our mouth was, like for real, is like investing in that. And I'm just really thankful that we as a team got to say these things were going to happen. And then they did, versus like, oh yeah, promises this, promise you that, promise you this, and then we just pick up and move out because another mission comes in that's a bigger priority. And so it was really good to see that, but it took a couple months for them to really start to believe that.
Months, huh?
Months.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, they're like.
So I think we got there with the answer. So a good couple of months, I think, in relation to the original question, how long before the locals started feeling comfortable enough to move back in? That to me makes more sense than a few days, as I mentioned, or a few weeks. Like I would have been surprised, and if I was there, I would have been suspicious of any locals going, "Oh, okay, coming back now," because I'd be thinking, "This seems strange." Like months though makes a little bit more sense, but even then, hey, who knows what's happened to that village now since the coalition forces and that have departed, and yeah, the Taliban might not be too happy in terms of what happened in that area. So yeah, man, it's tough.
Yeah, you want a building in our village? Sure. What about that one? And we're like, no, what about that one? We're going tactical advantage, all this, can we defend it? Is it fortifiable? Like, nope. They gave us like the most dilapidated like walls, and it was literally like 4 walls that were barely hanging on. And they're like, that's all yours. It's brand new. It's great. You're going to love it. And we just and then we got in this mix of like, oh, we don't want to build a fire base all over again. So it needs to look like on the surface, it needs to look like it's just another home. And, but then it's like, well, what about our security, force protection? And they're like, where's my security?
Yeah.
So, that's where it gets in. They're like, what do you got?
I think that's from the Black Hawk Down movie where, what's his name? I can picture him. The Australian actor, anyway, that plays a Delta Force operator, says, "This is my safety." When he's in the chow hall, they've just exfilled him. They shoot and kill a wild pig, I think it is, and then he's just cutting the queue. And then he gets bailed up about his weapon. That's been a hot weapon. It's not on safe, and he says, "This is my safety." Hard case how he weaved that one in there. I think that's what the reference is to, anyway.
Guys building out there, you need all these HESCOs and this and that. I'm like, what fucking planet are you from?
Yeah.
Like, where are you right now? And they're in this same country, and their soda, like fucking, their Keurig coffee's too cold. And I'm like, why don't y'all come out here for a little bit, man? And like, you'll understand a little bit more about what we're asking. It's not, yeah. It was very hard to work in that environment where they're asking so much of us through blood and sweat equity, and like no, this is the mission. Like, but then they won't resource it or support it, in the way that it should. And that was where. That's why I was like, through the rotations I've done before, and like that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I was like, I gotta find something else, or I'm getting the fuck out.
Yeah. So what happened? Did you see your friend again that you put on the helicopter?
So Ryan actually. So when he was in transit back to either in Germany or in the States, he actually mailed a letter to Erica, and we still have it somewhere, but it's like chicken scratch. He's probably doped out of his mind, but he wrote something like, Erica, thank you so much for supporting Kyle. I don't know if you don't know this, but he's my hero. He saved my life, and something along those lines. And like, and then he was actually one of the first ones to do like the limb salvage, and they actually reattached his leg.
Wow.
And he's redeployed as an ODA on an ODA team like several times.
No shit.
After that, and just recently retired. He wrote a book called Tip of the Spear. And I couldn't be more proud of him as a human being. And just reconnecting with him after being in the shadows for 10 years after that, like it's been such a great healing experience for me. And like he's told me things that I just didn't, like I mentioned earlier, that I didn't remember, but he would come back in too. And it was so great to have the conversation with him from his perspective and then mine. And and then I couldn't be more proud of him as a human. He's doing missionary work in Ukraine. Like,
no shit.
He's got a heart of gold, man. And like, I think he deployed 3 or 4 more times with an ODA once he finally like recovered fully from it. I mean, like it's insane to me how they were able to do that. But modern like science and, they did say that like had we not gotten the bleeding stopped when we did, like he would have for sure been dead.
Man, that's a pretty cool story, and cool that he's been able to reconnect. I'm just looking at Sean thinking, oh man, that guy sounds like another guest he could get on there, and he's doing missionary work in the Ukraine as well. Far out. That's hearty. That's a life of service right there. Getting his leg reattached, redeploying several more times, recently retired in the Ukraine. Now, doing missionary work could be doing missionary work, in quotation marks, because it might be another type of missionary work. But hey, the dude sounds like an awesome individual, good human, as Kyle is talking about, and he's still searching and looking for and applying himself in ways whereby he can serve, and that's awesome.
I mean, even just seconds, and
wow.
Because he tried himself a couple times, he just couldn't get it on to his. It couldn't make sense of what was happening. To hear his perspective is amazing. And
what's his name?
Ryan Hendrickson.
Yeah, maybe you can link me up with him
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just thinking that. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, he sounds like he'd be a great guest to get on Sean's show. Hendrickson.
Yeah, I just, people like that it's a really good like feeling to have worked with people like that, and then to see them through their own struggles and physical, and just to come out and psychological, like that is attached to all of it, to come back out and be the same person I had conversations with pre-injury, and that's just like such a, because that happened with my ODA commander too. From that trip, he stepped on an IED and lost both his legs above the knee. And man, this is the guy that played lacrosse at West Point, a freaking stud, Benjamin Harrow. And when I reconnected with him, like after he stepped on that IED and like that happened, I went to Walter Reed with my family and was going to go, because I went to selection and was in the waiting period of something, or it started the training course, and I was like, I got to go right after the injury. As soon as he got into, and he came back into and was at Walter Reed, Ben Harrow, like I went up to DC and was like, I don't know, but I just want to show him like I'm here. And he wasn't. I went up there and I got all the way to the floor he was on, and this is like a week after he lost both of his legs. Like he wasn't ready to see people, but I left like a basket and a note, like telling him, hey man, like I'm here. Like I know your team is over there, but I'm here. And then after that, I'd head down doing what I was doing in the unit I was in, and to be able to reconnect with him when I was going through the National Intrepid Center of Excellence TBI, the treatment at Walter Reed, I reconnected with him, and it was like he's getting around on his getaway sticks, man. Like he had double amputee above the knee. He has like a world record for regrowing femur from. It was so far, there wasn't enough femur to attach or to be able to support or tie onto a prosthetic. He wasn't going to walk, so he refused to let that happen. So he did some, like, just like he always was that type of person and man. Like they went and like would have to re-brake and traction, brake, traction, and he regrew not only enough to like put on a prosthetic, but like
holy shit,
like some crazy amount of like 6 inches of femur or something. I don't know, but it's amazing to me to see these guys that I've fought side by side with, and while I'm going through my own missions and struggles and come back together, and we're all the same good, caring, people that I remember, just with a whole lot of, story behind us.
That's cool that he's been able to have part of that as part of his journey and reconnecting, healing. Man, that sounds crazy. Regrowing femur, re-braking, traction, braking at track. Didn't even know that was something that was being done, but I suppose, grateful to have the scientists and the medical professionals out there that spend time, that try to find ways to help anybody, not just veterans, but anybody in those situations who have experienced and suffered such traumatic events and loss like that. And for them to, be able to move past that, or not move past it, but to find a way to keep going and to adjust to their new way of being, made me smile when he said he's getting around on his getaway sticks. But I'm sure that they no doubt have a laugh and can have that laugh together. But the reminiscing and thinking about who they were, and Kyle remembering who this guy was and how much of a stud, to use his term, that guy was prior to becoming a double amputee above the knee. Man, it must hit very different, but it must be nice when I'm listening to him speak about the connection that they have, and that they're still, essentially at their core, they're still the same person, which is cool. As tragic and as sad as that is, it's cool to hear that part.
And that's what really drives me to know that it's not too late, unless you say it is. But
that's a great point. Yeah, it's that. And another one, it's not over until it's over, or it's not over until you say it's over. And so as long as you and I and we continue to refuse to say that things are over, then we keep turning up and we keep putting one foot in front of the other. We keep staying in the fight.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, this is a good break segment. I kind of skipped around, but
we're good. When we come back, we'll pick up with after that deployment when you got back home. All right, so you just wrapped up your final deployment with your SF team. You're back home.
Yeah, so
what's happening?
Coming back home, I was prepping for, I had to go back to and redo the 18-miler and the board for the selection and assessment up in West Virginia, because I had went to West Virginia for that assessment before that deployment, and they told me like I need to go get some more experience.
So you tried out for
the unit. Yep. Yeah, the CAD, Combat Applications Group, or Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta.
And they told you needed more experience.
Yeah,
how many deployments did you had up to that point?
4. But
4 deployments?
They were long deployments.
To include the 82nd deployment?
Yep. So, all of them were 6, 8, 9 month deployments, but this is a short amount of time from 2002, 3 to, we're talking about spring of 2010 when I went to assessment for that. And I made it through everything. And then when they do the last thing in the board, I didn't want to talk about some of the things that I needed to grow. I still was in this like team mindset of like, that's just team business, man. I ain't talking about that. And they're not looking for that kind of person. You know, it doesn't matter how capable you are, you know, because I had made it through everything up to that point. And, you know, that was a very humbling period where I was just like, well, hold on, that doesn't make sense. And then I couldn't see it for what it was. And I needed to go do that other trip where I just talked about.
I'm sorry, what did they not like?
It's not that they didn't like something. There's a lot of psychological evaluations they do, and you know they're very much like paying attention to the whole person. Mm-hmm. So you can physically make it, you know, through time, making whatever the time standards are, and the great equalizer is the terrain. You know, so you can only recover from so many mistakes. You know, it doesn't matter how physically fit you are. If you are on the wrong mountain, ridgeline, you're on the wrong mountain.
Yeah.
And you ain't recovering from it. So so like it was, I felt, you know, it's
I'm just sorry to cut him off again. Yeah, it's just that another piece now where the question was, what did they not like? So I'm guessing the panel, the assessors, made up of no doubt psychological specialists who may or may not be operators within Delta, probably not. I'm guessing, but I could be wrong. And then made up clearly, most likely, of operators, qualified operators, badged operators within Delta. And yeah, if that's how he was in terms of not answering the questions, I suppose, that were put to him, because he was thinking, team guy, that's team business, it's none of your business. Yeah, that's just sort of likely not the right type of mindset or person that they're looking for if you're refusing to answer the questions that they put forward to you. They already know the game. They may not know the details or whatever, but yeah, I can't imagine them wanting to. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate on that. But we haven't got to the part of what did they not like. And I think Sean's question was in relation to him when he was in front of the panel and they said that he needed to go and get some more experience.
It was a very physical process, man, and you against yourself and a clock that you don't get to see. And that's why it's like the mindset I've always had is I'm gonna let them tell me no. But then to be told no, it was like, well, hold on a minute. What do you mean? Everyone likes me. And I just did this, like, what? So I came home kind of like, what do I do with my hands, you know? And then quickly I was like, my team needs me. So I went and deployed to that village stability operations mission. And
do you think that was a generic response? You need more experience. I mean, 4 combat deployments is a lot of experience.
No, I think it's a maturity thing.
You think it was a maturity thing?
It absolutely is.
How old were you when you
20
first tried out?
Spring of 10. I don't do public math, Sean.
About 25?
26, 27.
Okay.
26 or 7. And I needed.
But I'm glad there's somebody else too. It's like when I get put on the spot with numbers, I'm bloody rubbish. Useless. But I'm not saying that he's useless. But yeah, I like his comment. I don't do public math, Sean. So 25, 26.
I needed that I went to SODIC after that. I went to the sniper school and then I deployed, you know, for 9 months doing that VSO thing, came back and I was going to take over as the assistant team sergeant. But I had to make a choice, like, because I knew that they said go and get some more experience, right? But that's as vague as it was. And part of that was on me to read between the lines and either say, fuck it, like, tried, they didn't want me, they missed out on me, or like used it to help like capture some of the things that I couldn't see for what they were at the time. And I went back and did the long walk and then the board again, and it was a different experience.
How long is the walk?
Which one?
How long is the
There's
longest?
the one in the beginning that you do is 18 miles. And then it's like you do your PT test, you do the 18 miler, and then you're just like, that's a prequel, like prereq.
Yeah.
That cuts a lot of the riffraff if you show up and you didn't know that was coming. Yeah. And I mean, I've ran the selection a few times as cadre, and it's really amazing to see, from both perspectives.
How many people are showing up to selection for that?
It varies, but I'd say they screen out to where there's 110 to 20 that show up. Like
how many
vetted? And the screening pool is very, vast, and they're pretty selective on just being able to attend. And then if you don't make it, depending on which point, like you still get. It's the most professional course I've ever been to, and then running it, you see how to run a professional course, a military training course, and or just any training course. It's like that perfect course on the surface, but behind the scenes, you got all these people just looking for work and constantly filling holes.
How many people were from other branches? Roughly.
I mean, a vast majority is from the Army. I'd say there's in the single digit, numbers. You have guys from different branches that show up. Yeah.
Were you more confident the second time around?
Well, yeah, because I didn't have to do the whole thing. I just had to, I went in when they were finishing up another course, and then I just did the last couple days.
Okay.
And when I say it was a different experience, it was because I matured.
Man, that's interesting. That's like a very, very, or sounds like a very, very different process for obvious reasons. I guess, different country, different units, different processes, which have already been tried, tested, and proven, etc. I've spoken about that before, but man, I struggle to get my head around that. One, just in terms of the nature and the size of the American war machine beast that it is, but the processes and stuff that they have, the terminology that they have. Obviously, I think you'd get it and be fairly fluent in that jargon and that language and that process if you were there. But as an outsider, foreigner looking in, or not even looking in, just listening in to bits and pieces of what people like Kyle and other operators from the US SF units talk about, it's been interesting to me. So going back, and I try to not draw a comparison, but try to make a link somehow to New Zealand and Australian selection. You'd be maybe on the cycle of training is probably the easiest way that I can put it. If you got dropped for not meeting the requirements during the phase of cycle, and they said you need to go away, get some more skill and time up, and then we'll let you come back and have another crack at cycle, but you've got to start from this point. So you might have to either do the whole cycle again, or you might have to do one or two courses from before where you got up to and where you failed the first time, and then carry on. That's where I could probably see a similarity in terms of what he's talking about, because he said he just had to go back and do the last little bit or whatever it was, or a couple of days. And because I think to myself, otherwise, if you don't meet the criteria. So the other part is when people fail the selection, they don't get accepted to progress onto the cycle. Typically, if they want to get into the unit, they've got to come back and they've got to go through all of that again. They've got to go through the cycle, the selection again, like the 10 days in NZ plus the pre-selection stuff prior to, or the full selection in Australia. They don't typically, I've never heard of people that have passed the selection, been declined, and then bringing them back to just go straight on. Oh, actually, you passed selection a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever it was. We want to put you on the cycle. Maybe that does happen, but I'd never heard of that happening when I was going through anyway. And it was something that you have to go through it again. And that's why I've spoken about it before. If I had have passed selection but got to the board or the CO and failed and got told, yep, congratulations, but no for the cycle, I would have gone back and reapplied and gone through selection again. It's just, yeah, that's just how it was. So this is interesting, hearing Kyle speak about that he didn't need to do any of that again.
Like a lot. And a lot of that was like, I needed to be there to help save Ryan's life.
Sorry, I didn't realize I spoke that long. It's 31 minutes now on there. So I'll wrap this one up. But pleased that I'm chipping away through Kyle's and DJ's interviews, as well as Christian Craighead's as well. So if you're seeing a few of those pop up, that's why, because they're quite mammoth sessions. And before I crack on with the Big Phil Campions and Mel Downs and a whole bunch of other ones that have got there, which are also fairly long, I said in an earlier video that I needed to dedicate some time and chip away at these. So anyway, really enjoying listening to Kyle's experience, what he's gone through. I realize that this is old, but for me, it just gives me a really good insight into not only him, but also the processes that are or that make up part of the US military and his process to get into the Delta Force. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you very much for sticking around and for your support. As always, any challenges, difficulties, hard times, keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, stay as consistent and as disciplined as you can. Know that you're not alone. Know that those bad, miserable, lonely times won't last forever. So keep turning up and keep staying in it. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.